Mcebisi Jonas has appealed for patience and calm as he prepares to speak to various sectors in the United States following his appointment as South Africa's special envoy. He was appointed yesterday by President Cyril Ramaphosa in a move to mend the relationship with Washington. Things have been tense between South Africa and the Americans, largely based on allegations, false claims even, of a white genocide targeting white Afrikaners, in particular the confiscation of land, as Donald Trump has claimed was going on. The Americans have also taken exception to comments made recently by the now expelled ambassador to Washington, Ebrahim Rasool. Let's talk more about the appointment of Mcebisi Jonas. Bring in Martin Kingston, the CEO for Business for South Africa. Martin, good evening. Good to have you on SABC News. So, do you think that Mcebisi Jonas, with especially his background from Treasury, is likely to have an easier time in Washington, perhaps dealing with business, than he might on the diplomatic front?
Well, I think that actually he'll be able to do both, Thembekile. He's a seasoned politician, as we know, very familiar with the issues that have to be addressed, both within the United States, but also within South Africa. We have to understand that there's a bilateral relationship here that needs to be reset. I think we're all very mindful of that. He has the endorsement, the backing of the president. He's acting for and on behalf of the government of South Africa, not one part of the government, in the national interest. And we have already started working with him as business to ensure that we can give our maximum support in addressing the many issues that need to be addressed if we're going to ensure that we can maximize the benefit that accrues both to South Africa but also to the United States from an appropriate relationship.
How does Business for South Africa give that support, given that much of the tension is happening at a high government level? What can you do?
Well, that's exactly right. So there are some issues that are of a geopolitical nature. I think we know what they are, whether it be the issues in the Middle East and indeed the situation around the ICJ case prosecuted by South Africa, or indeed other matters that are, I would characterize, of a geopolitical nature. That is a government-to-government issue. Indeed, the trade and investment issues that have been raised by the United States are also government-to-government issues, but one that bear directly upon the business community, both the South African business community as well as the American multinationals that are invested in South Africa. We have over 600 of those. And I think that we can provide skills and expertise, as indeed we're doing in the context of the partnership between business and government in other areas.
And as someone, Martin, who's privy to some of the behind the scenes, shall we say, conversations. I recall, in fact, last year, am I right, you were part of a delegation that had gone there with Minister Parks Tau when there was a conversation around trade between what was then the Biden administration, the American government at the time, and South Africa. As things stand, have you been able to gauge, for instance, whether business in the US takes its cue from Donald Trump? By that I mean, whether his feelings towards this country influence the way in which the American business sector may be looking to trade or do new deals?
Now, well, I wasn't part of that delegation, but people who are involved in the discussions with Mr. Jonas most certainly were, and they are part of the B4SA structures, as you know, Thembekile. There's no doubt that the change in the administration and the Trump administration now has got a different agenda, and that American businesses need to listen carefully to that agenda. It starts, of course, with the fact that the priority is, America first. And that is manifest in all of the engagements that we've had, both with business as well as with the political structures, with think tanks and other influences in America. We need to be cognizant of that. By the same token, we have to be aware of the critical priorities for the South African administration. And Mr. Jonas's role, inter alia, in a very complex set of circumstances, will be to thread the needle, if I could characterize it as such, make sure that he harmonizes all of these different issues and prioritizes them accordingly. It's not going to happen overnight. He needs to make sure that he has his own resources in place, the structures that are required to enable him to prosecute his role, and to do so in a thoughtful but deliberate and quick way, as is necessary under the circumstances. And
Martin, you are on SABC Radio this morning talking about how jobs and the economy need to be given the due attention, prioritized. Essentially, I wonder if Business for South Africa has taken a view on how South Africa should stack up its priorities, the economy and the broader policy and principle issues, i.e. the case against Israel at the ICJ, the relationship with Iran, which the Americans would want South Africa to give up or at least create a distance, expropriation as a policy?
Well, we have always put, as Business for South Africa in our partnership with government, jobs and inclusive growth at the very centre of our priority list, and that continues to be the case. Some of the geopolitical considerations that you talk about are, of course, issues that are government-to-government considerations. They are absolute strategic priorities for the South African government, and in that particular context, we have to align with them to ensure that what we do doesn't undermine both our own geopolitical strategy, but also our key macroeconomic drivers, and their jobs are absolutely at the forefront. We know, for example, that there's the possibility of either creating or forfeiting jobs, depending upon the trade and investment discussions that will take place with the United States over the coming weeks and months, led by Mr. Jonas. And he will have to be mindful, and I'm sure he is already mindful, of some of those considerations that you've talked about.
How will he have to go about convincing, for instance, if he'll be in the US within this time frame where there has to be, according to Donald Trump, the president of the US, negotiations with individual countries, especially on the issue of tariffs? South Africa faces about 31% in terms of the levy on our imports that will be going there. Do you think there's enough time to salvage that and convince the White House to change its mind?
Well, of course, we've seen a changing position, kaleidoscope, if I can put it that way, of tariff positions over the last few weeks from the White House. At the moment, the rate that's been set for South Africa is 10%. As you know, that's not with respect to the automobile sector more broadly. There's a big question about whether or not AGOA will be continued beyond September. There's an issue about whether or not South Africa will retain its status within AGOA. The DTIC is fully cognizant of this. You'll have seen in the President's announcement of Mr. Jonas that the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition alongside DIRCO are, if you like, critical sponsors of the role, and Mr. Jonas will be engaging with both of those. Business, which is directly impacted by those tariff negotiations, of course, is making its voice known in critical areas such as agriculture, the motor industry and other manufacturing sectors. And that has already started, and that will continue in the weeks to come.
Martin Kingston, good to talk to you as always, CEO at Business for South Africa. Thank you.